Ashe is one of the best DPS picks to consistently climb in Overwatch. What I mean by that is that she will rarely be a bad pick, so she is a character that it is worth learning and investing time into that has a big impact on a lot of games despite maps, enemy comp, or team comp. This is why it's one of the characters that I play the most and the one that I recommend that beginners learn the role of DPS with. In this video, I'm going to go over the playstyle that you should be focusing on when playing Ashe in order to maximize her abilities and develop good habits that will accompany you throughout your entire journey as you increase in rank and as you improve your general gameplay. While this video is beginner focused, I think that there are some useful tips that we all forget along the way that even veteran players will be able to take advantage of. So hi, I'm Mugthief, I make videos about games, and I hope you enjoy this one. So I'm not going to bullshit you. Good aim is critical in every DPS, and the ones that don't really require it that much still require a lot of good tracking. So why is Ashe so good for beginners? It's because she is not as mechanically intensive as a lot of other characters. If on the highest end of the mechanical spectrum you have something like Tracer that requires immense amount of knowledge, very high awareness, high tracking, and just very demanding to play, Ashe would be on one of the lowest of the spectrum. Her only mobility option is on a very long cooldown, so the focus of her playstyle is knowing how to position very well and then hit shots. I think this is perfect for beginners because as you develop that game sense of where to position, you will see how you have more time to aim your shots, you will be practicing your aim, and you will immediately see better results. So what is that good positioning? Well, Ashe isn't helpless at close range. She does want to be at a medium to long range, which means that in a normal team composition, you will want to be either with or slightly in front of your supports, or at the very least, in a high ground position with easy line of sight so that your supports can see you and heal you. You always want to be in a place where it is difficult for people to focus on you so that you have ample time to aim and hit your shots. By positioning well and giving yourself that space to aim, you will be improving your aim game after game. It is very important as Ashe that you never ever go in front of your tank. Make sure that you are always behind and kind of looking into the chaos of the battlefield instead of in it. The easiest way to achieve this is by always looking for high ground. Whenever possible, position yourself above. This makes it harder for people that are below you to hit you and makes it easier for you to hit them. I believe that a good Ashe should always stay at the best high ground of a map unless she is forced out of it by, for example, a Genji or a Winston or things like that. So don't be afraid to just stay up in that location. If other people want to push and other people want to peek and see if they can get a pick, that's good for them. But your positioning is the biggest advantage that you can have as Ashe. So stay there and don't risk looking for a different angle just to get a quick peek and then have to reposition back to a safer one. Just stay where you are and it will always give you better results. Along with the mechanical ease that Ashe brings, there are some small mechanics that you should always be trying to learn. Firstly, corner peeking. That means that once you have secured a high ground position that you are safe in, you don't just want to sit out in the open. So you have to learn to AD strafe. That means that you are constantly flicking between A and D to move side to side to make yourself harder to hit. Ashe doesn't benefit as much as other characters from jumping throughout her animation since she is very slow when scoped in, but this is an area that you can practice. Look for good cover and then weave in and out of it on every shot that you take until you get into a rhythm. Let's move on to how to utilize her abilities correctly. Your coach gun, that's the shotgun that you pull out and shoot, will always be your most important cooldown. You can use it when you're completely safe to reposition, for example, to fly up and take high ground, or to go for a shot from the air, or to throw a dynamite over a wall and get some damage, but I strongly recommend that you keep your coach gun cooldown with you at all times, because at any moment if somebody jumps on you, this is the most important cooldown you have in protecting yourself and getting out of that situation. It will allow you to simultaneously push away the enemy and reposition to a location where you can be safer, protected by your team, or in a better line of sight for your supports. Keep in mind that if for any reason, if you have your dynamite available as well, you can quickly throw out your dynamite and blow it up with the coach gun, and that way you can leave the enemy burning, which could dissuade them from trying to chase you further. Speaking of which, your Dynamite is one of the best abilities in the entire game, and getting good with it is really a matter of looking for opportunities anytime that it's off cooldown, especially because it's one of the best ways to build your ultimate charge. And Ashe, especially at lower ranks and how games are played more around bronze, silver, gold, and platinum lobbies, can completely decimate a game just by having good usages of Bob and by charging it up consistently. A well-placed 4 to 5 man Dynamite can easily bring you between 10 and 14% ultimate charge every 8 seconds. That means that along with good shooting, I have had opportunities where I have charged Bob in about 40 to 50 seconds from the moment that a fight started. So get used to the arc of the Dynamite when you throw it, and get used to shooting it. If you stand completely still when throwing the Dynamite will naturally follow to where your crosshair is, and you just have to time the shot. But you won't always have that luxury. So get good at memorizing the patterns of the arcs depending on how you're aiming it, so that you can do things like aim it over enemy shields and then pop it right after it goes through to get a lot of damage on the enemy. You'd be surprised how many accidental kills you can get through the chaos of a fight by just leaving somebody on fire when the supports are distracted. And it's incredibly valuable if there is one support missing, since it will be difficult for them to focus the person that is burning, and it does do a lot of damage. Again, just like I said that Ashe is very good at learning a lot of the fundamentals of the game, practicing with your Dynamite is good for tracking moving objects. So just remember to try and use it off cooldown if you have a good group of enemies, or just to get some damage and apply pressure to the enemy team. One of the most important skills that Ashe teaches you is also how to be patient and stay safe. This is because of her very long reload time. A lot of newer players in FPS games in general have an obsession with constantly reloading after popping a couple of shots, which leads to a lot of downtime if you didn't need to take that extra time to hide behind a wall and reload. If you try and reload after every shot with Ashe, your overall DPS will be very low, and a lot of supports will be able to out-heal your body shots if you just keep reloading. Keep shooting as much as you can, and trying to get those shots, and then when there is truly an opportunity, when there is nobody on the screen that you can shoot, take a moment to calm down and reload. You will instinctively get a feel for when it is a good time to back off and how many bullets you've spent. Another common issue I see with newer Ashe players is that they will not want to use their unscoped Viper. The unscoped Viper does have less damage, but it also has a faster fire rate. And the 3 first shots that you fire unscoped have no recoil, which means that for optimum DPS, for example, if you want to scare away a tank like a diva that's diving you, my optimum combo is normally to do 1 scoped shot, 3 unscoped shots, 1 scoped shot, and then repeat. Of course, you will burn through your ammo, but your objective is for them to be eliminated. If the enemy is eliminated, you have plenty of time to reload. Don't worry about it. So learning to alternate between those 2 modes of fire, especially at close range, if you are being threatened, is valuable, but also to quickly eliminate enemies that are maybe very low in HP, because in the time that you will line up 1 scoped shot, you might be able to try with 3 unscoped shots. And if any of those 3 hit, that enemy could be eliminated. So always keep in mind that you don't need to be scoped in to shoot. As I've said before, I think a lot of these things all accumulate to the experience of climbing with Ashe being very beneficial to all of the fundamental skills you need to be a good DPS player and have a good understanding of the game in general. But what makes Ashe incredibly consistent at allowing you to climb at lower ranks is Bob. Bob is one of the most impactful ultimates in the game, which is reflected in the fact that it's one of the most expensive ultimates to build up. In lower ranks, it's not that common to see eliminations, but it is common to see a lot of damage flying around. And this is a great playground for Ashe to thrive in. At lower ranks, she can just pump out damage like everybody else, but her ultimate will have a significantly bigger impact than many others. And as you continue climbing and your aim and positioning continue to improve, her ability to get picks and pressure the opponent start to have more value instead of Bob, which can be countered if not used properly. I would say that in low ranks, Bob has a very high success rate as people don't really know how to deal with him. but as you climb, you will need to use Bob correctly. The general tips I can give on how to use Bob is that Bob should never be used as a second tank. If it is over time and the only way to touch point is by throwing Bob in, because he does count for capping point, he is a player, you should only use Bob in conjunction with your tank. As soon as your tank goes in, allow Bob to be a second tank turret mobile pressure machine. With your tank there to protect Bob, Bob can completely zone out the enemy or get 2 to 3 to 4 eliminations in the chaos. But if you throw Bob in by himself, he is very easily countered. A 3-second Ramatra shield into an Ana sleep, or a Sigma suck into an Ana sleep, buying time with a Suzu, Bob could have no impact at all. Again, in lower ranks, this isn't as common as people tend to panic, but the higher you go, the easier it is to counter him. So use him always in conjunction with the chaos. It's a general theme with Ashe. Ashe thrives by there being chaos on the screen and having ample time to position and look for her shots. And the same thing happens with Bob. The more chaos there is, throwing Bob into it will give you better results. Additionally, positioning Bob is very, very important. You could throw out Bob and have him completely miss, and that would be the worst thing possible. If he just doesn't activate and has nobody to shoot in his range, that is a waste of one of the best ultimates in the game. So generally what I like to do is look for a wall, a position that if Bob were to run all the way, he would be causing impact. Somewhere at a choke point, a corner, maybe slightly difficult for the enemy team to target him, but easy for him to kill them even if they slightly peek him. So normally, while the enemy team is pushing, throwing Bob behind them can be very good, or just at corners in maps can be excellent as well. I normally look for these specific spots that I like, and if I can hit an enemy along the way that will position him better, that's great, and I get that bonus damage from Bob throwing them up. But I know that if I don't hit that enemy, Bob will still land in a position that I want. One of the biggest mistakes I see Ashes make is throwing Bob thinking that they are 100% going to hit an enemy, and therefore that will be where Bob stops, and the enemy to be Suzu'd or to dash away, and for Bob to go nowhere. From the perspective of target prioritization, by the way, it is important that Ashe does not shoot shields and tanks. You can spread damage as much as you want since charging your ultimate is incredibly valuable, but you should always be aiming for anybody in the backline or for anybody flying, as that's a critical part of a hit scan's job, especially in the lower ranks where flyers are very common as a way to pub stomp. So yeah, I hope that this video was helpful. It taught you something. If you were already a more experienced player and this put some things into a better perspective or reminded you of some fundamentals, make sure to let me know in the comments. If anybody has any other questions, that is the place to put them as well. And before we go, if you like what I do, please subscribe. It helps me out tremendously, since my dream is to be able to make entertaining and useful content for people, and every subscription is worth more than you can imagine. I've been Mug Thief, it's been an absolute pleasure, and